Hello and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you discussing about AI, which is a very relevant and very timely topic for all of us, all coming together from very different domains. I'll just spend a few seconds on this slide before we actually deep dive into the topic. So so far, I think what we have heard from our speakers and panelists is about innovation. So we've heard about a lot of very successful use cases across the industry. And what question do we ask ourselves now as we stand today in 2026 is how do we scale it up now? Now, by scaling, what we mean is that we have numerous innovation use cases that we see, a lot of them scattered, but we know that as an industry, as an ecosystem, we are trying to come together to ensure that we are able to shift our mindset from innovation that is definitely with purpose, purposeful innovation, to then moving to scalable impact. Now we know, we've talked about it, so I'll not go into the details, but almost a decade ago when people started talking about AI, using AI, and it came into the public domain, what we saw was a decade-old promise. The promise that the drug discovery and development would reduce, with the use of AI, the development phase would reduce from 12 years to much lesser, from a 2.6, roughly between 2 to 3 billion US dollars, to much cheaper and also clinically accurate, making it accessible across the globe. Now, the main problem that we see along drug discovery and development is the attrition. As we go down the funnel, the number of candidates really go down up to when a confirmatory phase 3 trial is run. So we are moving from a traditional model to something that is either AI assisted, AI derived, or AI designed. So these are new concepts that are coming in, and a lot of us are touching upon these areas across the ecosystem. What we need to do is a pivot to scaled AI-enabled foundations through structured investments in biological foundation models, data, and agentic AI that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with by now. So moving from AI as simply a tool to an operating model transformation, driving end-to-end acceleration in the discovery as well as the development phase, the quality of decisions, which are not only made in labs, not only in clinical trial setups, but also at the level of the portfolio strategy, and driving intelligent decisions and scalable impact across the entire life cycle. So moving from largely fragmented use cases to end-to-end integration is what I would like to focus on during my talk. So can AI reliably improve how we discover, develop, as well as deliver medicines at scale? The latest evidence that we see, and that is widely available across literature, is about 75 molecules that have been AI-derived, not strictly AI-designed, but derived or assisted in some sort of, I would say, AI shaping their development, have reached clinical stages. However, no AI-discovered drug has yet been approved or even reached up to phase 3. There are concrete platform signals that have emerged. We have seen positive phase 2A results. That is, again, very encouraging for AI, for an AI-discovered drug in the industry. We have seen targeted mergers. We have seen a lot of M&A happening and AI-enabled drug design advances as well. And all this result in measurable gains in targeted use cases, specifically to the clinical side of things, improved trial design, faster recruitment, better site selection, but the impact remains localized across the industry rather than systemic, at least in this point in time. So while innovation comes up with choosing the right problems or asking the right question, the scalable impact would only come when we have a strong governance mechanism around it, a validated mechanism, as well as a workflow embedded manner. Now, I'd like to spend just a minute on the difference between what is AI designed versus what is AI assisted. So when we look at the AI designed dimension, the role of AI is that it is the primary driver with probably an AI-generated target as well, a de novo AI-generated molecule with, and this of course adds up cumulatively to very high novelty, and that is also associated with a higher risk, as we can all understand. So far, very, very few and scarce examples is what we see across the industry. With the pipeline maturity, the highest level that we see is around positive phase 2A results. When we look at AI assisted, we see that the role of AI here is more of support or an enabler, and it's often human-driven. The molecule design may be optimized or refined, as some of the speakers earlier have already discussed. And the novelty is, of course, lesser, it's moderate, as well as with a lower risk profile, which is quite understandable. Now, these AI-assisted molecules, as we have seen the data and results across the industry again, shows molecules that have reached phase 3, which is, again, a very encouraging sign. Now, we have discussed so far about innovation. How do we translate this into impact across the entire value chain? So I'll not go into the details. I think everyone is very familiar, starting from target to submission and beyond. But what I would like to do here on this particular slide is highlight the use cases wherein these can actually be translated into a scalable model. And when everything comes together, how do we move from fragmented to a more uniform or connected end-to-end system? So starting with target identification, we have learned about the different data. It could be multi-omics, the vast amount of literature, real-world data that would actually, the natural disease history, and all this data can very nicely be pulled together by AI to shift discovery to a more systematic and network-driven target identification, enabling prioritization of high probability, as well as, most importantly, druggable targets, uncovering disease links and improving the success rates. The next step is the lead generation, wherein rapid in silico screening. So earlier, what used to be thousands are now touching up to millions and billions. That is like huge. And we are able to identify the novel hits much faster than the traditional methods. What really is helpful also here is moving from sequential to parallel, simulation-driven exploration, which would definitely accelerate the hit identification. So we see across the industry that these steps, particularly in the lab, AI is being used a lot, and as time passes further, we are getting better at it. The candidate optimization, where we look at optimizing the potency, selectivity, the ADME properties, the tox properties, the predictive safety, or tox patterns. These are all can be optimized, and AI, again, plays a huge role. So in isolation, each of these individual use cases would probably not create that level of impact. However, if it is done at an end-to-end integrated scale, it would definitely bring that kind of impact into the drug development process. The closed loop systems, where the DMTA that earlier Dr. Yas talked about, would really help with the AI plus robotics working hand in hand to ensure that the design, make, test, analyze cycles move forward. We reduce the number of compounds synthesized with efficiency gains and coming up with fewer iterations that are more efficient and effective. Moving on to the clinical part. Now, the clinical development, which is, of course, the phase in the overall drug development cycle that takes much longer, is very costly to execute for the industry. There are multiple ways, and we are seeing those shifts happening across the development. So it could be starting from the optimization of the protocol, the study design, the patient stratification, to faster site selection and enrollment that comes to more in the operations side of things. So augmenting both the clinical development and operations, as well as the strategy that is linked to the overall portfolio of the organization, everything together can really help with optimizing the clinical development cycle as well. Real-time analytics, as well as agentic AI, they orchestrate end-to-end workflows and delivering the necessary productivity gains. Lastly, the regulatory. So when we come to, particularly in cases of AI-assisted drugs, at least in the current scenarios, we see that moving from manual authoring to AI-assisted documentation, this is again one space that really reduces the timeline and a very efficient one, and we see that the industry across has taken strides in terms of coming together with these kind of mechanisms. What underlies or underpins this entire value pipeline of AI is using it responsibly and creating AI, letting AI create that value, and bringing that competitive advantage by bringing an end-to-end system. Now, what we can do easily, I would say, as some of the initial steps and as an industry that we see is happening. Integrating AI into the company's databases, the internal knowledge databases, as well as the vast amount of data that is already available through all these years of experimentation. Workflows and change management, that includes, of course, upskilling of the people who are working in this particular space, again, a huge task, and being open to it and making it really intentional. Secondly, the data architecture and prioritization of the focus set of use cases out of the plethora of things that we saw in the previous slide, making very intentional decisions in terms of what and how do we achieve it, rather than launching some isolated use cases across, and being in continuous dialogue with the health authorities. So the HAs have already emphasized a risk-based approach that notes increasing AI use across the drug product life cycle. And this is an interesting fact that we came across, is that in the 2025 US draft guidance for AI that was released, and I would encourage everyone to look at it, the guidance was informed by over 500 submissions starting from 2016, almost a decade ago, up until 2023, and with over more than close to 800 comments. So to bring it to conclusion, AI, as we see, is not just a tool, a technology transformation, but requires a very integrated scientific, operational, and very importantly, governance transformation to really see the scale impact by AI. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation and leave you all with one thought, that with AI currently, it's not about what is possible, but what is it that we can truly scale to meet the unmet needs that we clearly see around us. So yeah, thank you so much, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, ma'am, so much. If there are questions, I think so we will take in the end because short of time. So over to you, ma'am.